and welcome to my presentation of Ayurveda. I am addressing the military community and their families and the whole community in general because Ayurveda is just so important for everyone to know about. And as you see on the screen, Ayurveda is the science of life. And you're like, okay, science of life. What does that mean? Well, how it's been explained to me is Ayurveda is what we do before we go to a Western doctor. And this is what I've heard from so many Western practitioners. If individuals knew about Ayurveda, which is Eastern medicine, and it's just the self care, our diet, everything, physical activity, food we put into our body, our mental health. If we just did that before any kind of disease or illness or ailment set in, we would not have to go see a Western doctor. I mean, there's occasional things that happen that you have to go see a Western doctor for, but it just, Ayurveda makes things uh, seem like they're on a whole new level when you do figure out, hey, if I take care of myself, I won't have these huge doctor bills. Because in Ayurveda, food is medicine. So what you put into your body, if it's whole or has wholeness to it and pure and just generally good for you, it's going to make a big difference. So let's move on to our presentation. Let me get this thing going. So we've got our Ayurveda, the science of life, for my mid-course celebration that I'm going to present to y'all. What is Ayurveda? So we're going to go over the definition of Ayurveda and the explanation of Ayurveda, what the three doshas are, how we create balance in the three doshas, and Ayurvedic perspective on diet and digestion. Let's see. So the first part of the Ayurveda, which is Ayu, is either defined as life or lifespan. The Veda is total knowledge, and together it becomes the science of life. So here's a saying from Ayurveda. One whose doshas are balanced, whose digestive fire, which is called Agni, is balanced, whose bodily tissues, and tissues are dhatus, are balanced, and elimination processes are functioning normally, and whose senses, mind, and self are filled with bliss, such as a person considered healthy. Wow, that says a lot in itself, but what is all that? So the three doshas. The three doshas are inner intelligence that are within our body, or that govern all the biological and most of our physiological processes, like the organs, the tissues, all the ways of functioning of the cells, the genes, the DNA. So just everything. They are how Ayurveda defines and understands the incredibly sophisticated inner intelligence of the mind-body system. So what we have with these doshas, it's called Pancha Mahabhutas, the five great elements. So the elements of the world, most everybody knows: air, ether, fire, water, earth. So each one of these dosha bodies has its own element. So we've got, so these doshas are governed by each of the building blocks of creation according to Ayurveda. So Vata is air and ether, Pitta is fire and water, and Kapha has water also and earth. The three functions of Vata are transportation, movement, and communication. So this is what makes everything move in our body. And we need Vata to make sure everything's moving. Otherwise, we wouldn't work. So with what Vata gives us, it is responsible for the movement through the digestive tract. It gets those nutrients throughout all the cells, and even proteins and minerals on the level of all the genes. It's movement through the body parts, the limbs, blood throughout the body, signals from the nervous system to different cells that move about the body, even movements of thoughts in the mind, communication between organs, between cells, between the nervous system, and all the other systems in the body are all governed by this intelligence of Vata. That's a lot. So that's what Vata does. And the qualities of Vata are dry, light, cold, dry, rough, quick, and subtle. And later on, we'll be talking about the pulse, and these qualities also show up in the pulse, but we'll get to that a bit later. Now, the locations of Vata in the body are the colon, the bladder, the kidney, the anus, the rectum, waist, legs, feet, and bones. So pretty much everything from the colon, the waist down is what Vata governs, these systems. Our next one is Pitta. And Pitta's three functions are digestion, metabolism, and transformation. So it is responsible for all the metabolism, digestion, and transformation that takes place in the body. Metabolism of the food we take in terms of breaking the food down and building up a particular nutritional compounds that the body has to determine where it needs it. So Pitta is also your digestive fire, which is called Agnis, which we'll get to in just a bit later. But it is what governs our digestive tract, even the digestive system within all these cells and DNA. So it also takes care of not just digesting the food, but digestion of thoughts, emotions, the experience all around you, the transformation of whatever is in that field of that experience, the food, the people you're with, education. So if all of this is taken care of, it transforms into bliss. So if this inner intelligence is taken care of, just like Vata, it makes sure that it actually balances out both Vata and Kapha. So we got to make sure those digestive fires keep going. All right, and the qualities that show up in Pitta, and the qualities are also called gunas in Sanskrit, are slightly oily, light, hot, sharp, flowing, liquid, and pungent. And these are also qualities that'll show up in the pulse, which we will talk about later also. The locations of the body, or the locations in the body where Pitta is the small intestine, sweat, plasma, lymph, and blood. So it's pretty much everything that's liquid, that's moving through our body, getting to our tissues, wherever it needs it. All right, so the three functions of Kapha are structure, cohesion, and lubrication. So Kapha is responsible for these functions in the body. So this means a structural component of all the tissues, the organs, the cells, the genes, so on and so on. And the cohesion is like the togetherness, what keeps us together. We don't fall apart. Um, so, um, I mean that's the tissues, the cells, the cell walls, the organs, etc. We also have lubrication. So that means lubrication of the joints, the organs, the tissues, cells and genes, and so on. I mean, we can't really move if there's nothing going on. So kapha dosha, you kind of need it too. So the qualities of kapha dosha are oily, heavy, cold, wet, slow, stable, sticky, dull, and sweet. And where we find these in the body are the chest, head, neck, joints, stomach, and adipose tissue. All right, so how do we keep all these systems in balance? Well, we have pulse reading. We have maintaining a daily routine and diet and digestion. So you see this little Ayurvedic clock that is going to be part of the daily routine. So let's see what we have. All right, so self-pulse reading. It's Nadi Vragna. Nadi means substantial channels in the body, which I want to say there are several, but three main ones that I know of, but I'm not going to bring up right now because that's more in depth. And the Vragna is knowledge. So it's pretty much I'm sorry about that. The reasoning for the self pulse reading is to detect imbalances at an early stage, detect the cause of the imbalances, to maintain the individual's health, and restore balance to enliven the inner intelligence of the doshas. So this is where those gunas come in. If you're reading it properly with the vata, pitta, and kapha, you can feel those qualities and you just let it come to you innocently. So the characteristics of balance pulse, if everything's good, it'll be clearly expressed, non-mixed, pure, on its own, stable, in its own place, without excitement and without dullness. And you see that non-mixed and on its own and stable. When things are out of balance, sometimes those doshas can move into other doshas, which can cause increase or decrease, or something might have aggravated it in another dosha. But we'll get to that in just a bit. All right, more on the pulse. After learning to locate the pulse, feel the pulse with innocence. Never go looking for anything because you receive more knowledge when you're not looking for it. After learning to locate the pulse, you move to locate the surface pulse, which is just the top layer. You'll move to locating the deep pulse, which will tell you about the entire physiology. Women take their reading on the left wrist and men on the right, because in Ayurveda, since they go with creation, the right side is masculine and goes with the sun, and the left side is lunar, feminine. And that's how we take the pulse for both men and women, or however you identify. The pulse is to be taken before and after significant events like meals or meditation or such. Then when you are reading these pulse, like I said, there are three main states of the doshas. They're balanced, increased, or decreased. So that's when you're going to be getting into reading those gunas to see what's going on exactly. And a balanced pulse feels good, pleasant, blissful. And an imbalanced pulse is lacking in that blissful feeling. It doesn't feel good. It's just like blah. So here's a video showing how to take the pulse. And we'll play that right now. All right, I'm going to show you how to locate the pulse. First thing is when you are reading the pulse, you need to make sure you're sitting comfortably, your legs are uncrossed, have a pillow to rest your arm on because you don't want the arm bent up to cut off the pressure of reading the pulse. Also, on reading the pulse, you need to make sure you feel it innocently. You don't expect anything from it. When you don't expect anything, then the knowledge just comes to you. So don't try to just feel for something. Just let it innocently come to you, and what you feel is what you feel. So on men, we read it with the right hand, or their pulse, and we use our dominant hand when we're reading the pulse with any individual. And on women, we do the left hand. So when we are doing this, we make sure they're comfortable. We're comfortable, because if we're not comfortable, we're going to be reflecting that to them, and we won't get a proper reading at all. So we need to make sure we are also in a place where we won't be reflecting what we're going through, or we have ourselves in balance also, so we can help that individual. So what we're going to do, the hand, we locate the root of the thumb. You move down, find the bony prominence, which is about right in here, right there, and you move down a 1/2 centimeter. So on me, I'm going to take it right here, find that bony prominence, and use the tip of your finger. You might have to cut your fingernails. The tip of your finger, because that's where you get the feeling. You kind of roll it in till you start to feel something. You're going to rest your hand down, and then you're going to place your middle finger by it, right beside it, and your ring finger right beside that. You're going to gently lower down, relax, make sure your legs are uncrossed, and just feel the pulse at the moment. Just take a few breaths, make sure the fingers are even, and the tips of your fingers are what's reading the pulse. You can close your eyes if you want, just to make sure there's no outside sensory messing with what your reading's supposed to be, and that you're not expecting anything. Once you've taken a few breaths, and just read the pulse, see what you feel. And then we can move on to the deep pulse once you fill up the surface pulse. So with the deep pulse, you're going to also make sure you press the fingers down evenly all at the same time to cut off the pulse. And then you're going to gently release back up so you feel the flow of the pulse going again. Take a few breaths, and then read the pulse. With the deep pulse, it gives you a deeper reading of the entire physiology. So that's pretty much what it's going to do. So each finger, unless Vata is in your first finger, Pitta is in your middle finger, and Kapha is in your ring finger. So that's where we're going to get our readings from. And just have fun with it. Thank you. All right, so that was how to read the pulse and the deep pulse. And like I said, she said, Just don't expect anything from it. Just let the knowledge come to you. So let's move on.
All right.
So expressions of Vata balance state is enthusiasm, expiration, inhalation, movement, balance, development of the dhatus, which is tissues, and balance release of malas, which is the waste in the body. So you'll see that and read that in the pulse. Vata out of balance is insecure, nervous, worries too much, fear of loneliness, darkness, heights, close spaces. And I know me, I'm a Vata and I worry about everything. Expressions of Pitta balance state: sight, meaning good vision; digestion, metabolism; heat, normal temperature; thirst, hunger; softness in the body; luster, cheerfulness; and intellect. I do have a bit of Pitta, but it's not as crazy as it was when it was more predominant when I was younger. So Pitta out of balance: mood swings, irritability, jealousy, anger, frustration, extremely judgmental attitude, crave spicy foods, which I kind of do sometimes, which aggravates Pitta, interrupted sleep, workaholic tendencies. I do have workaholic tendencies, especially when I'm like on a roll. Expressions of Kapha balance state, which is unctuous, binding, firmness, heaviness, potency, strength, forbearance, restraint, patience, and absence of greed. I don't have much Kapha. my Vata keeps me pretty busy. So Kapha out of balance is obesity, greed, attachment, envy, possessiveness, extreme laziness, lust, craving too sweet, oily, or too much salty foods. All right, so here's where we get into this daily routine. All right, so it's said to start your day off 6 a.m. Try not to go past 7 because that's when the Kapha time starts working. So starting a routine, which is like get up, you evacuate your bowels, you brush your teeth, scrape your tongue, just get rid of all the toxins from where your body's been regenerating, restore, and releasing those toxins. Drink a glass of warm water. You could add lemon to not too hot water, something that you can touch comfortably. Honey, lemon to it, just to get the body going. Start with meditation, or you could also do a yoga routine, take a light walk, dry brush, do oil massage, take a bath, get dressed, eat breakfast before 8, and then start your day. And that is from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. The next time is Pitta time, which is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this is when you're supposed to have your largest meal of the day. And it's your best time to work also. So that's what you do during that time of day. The next time of day is 2 to 6 p.m., which is Vata time. And this is when you need to have your small last meal of the day, and it has to be light. Because if you have any digested food when you go to sleep, it can cause a few problems, which we'll get in with diet and digestion. So 6 to 10 p.m., your body kind of starts winding down. It's Kapha time. Turn off all devices, brush your teeth. You could do dry brushing and self-massage again. Read a book, journal, just kind of get settled down for the night. And then it says to be in bed by 10 p.m. because if you're not, that Pitta time will fire up. So it's best to be in bed by 10 p.m. To get the most benefits of your sleep, where you have that restore and regeneration, and your body just relaxes from the day's activities and processes those. Then the next time is Vata again from 2 a.m. to 6 p.m. when you can try to wake up before 6 p.m., but some of us struggle a little bit in that, or 6 a.m. So do what feels best. Try to wake up between 6 and 7, not after 7, and just see where it takes you. I mean, everybody's different, so you've got to go with what's good for you. All right, so diet and digestion. With diet and digestion, we each dosha has 6 tastes, and each one has to avoid one of these tastes. So with Vata, what either pacifies or balances out. Vata is fresh, seasonal, and pure foods. Flavor warm, well cooked, unctuous foods. Flavor is sweet, sour, and salty. And you need to have regular meal times with Vata, because I know with me in quantities, if I pass up a meal, like, I'm good with that, and I just kind of keep going, and I'm going along. So avoid snacking on dry, rough, or raw foods for Vata. Avoid leftovers, heavy foods, heavy dinners. Take in seasonal fruits and soak nuts and dried fruits. Spices for Vata are cumin, coriander, fennel, black pepper, fenugreek, turmeric, dried ginger, and mustard seed. Other herbs to think about are cilantro, parsley, basil, fresh ginger, sesame seeds, flax seeds, and lemon. All right, so foods for Pitta. Fresh, seasonal, pure foods. Flavor warm, not too hot or spicy, well-cooked foods. Flavored sweet, bitter, and astringent tastes are better for Pitta. Biggest meal of the day is at lunch. Avoid spicy, fermented, dry, rough, or sharp foods. Avoid leftovers, heavy foods, and heavy dinners. Take in seasonal fruits, soaked nuts, dried fruits daily. The spices for Pitta are coriander, fennel, turmeric, cumin, fenugreek. Herbs are cilantro, parsley, basil, and lime. Kapha pacifying measures or foods are fresh, seasonal, pure foods. Flavor warm, pungent, spicy, well-cooked foods. The flavors for Kapha are bitter, astringent, and pungent tastes. The biggest meal of the day is at lunch and a very light dinner. Avoid heavy, snacky foods like chips and sweets. Avoid leftovers, heavy foods, and dinners. Take in seasonal fruits, flavoring lighter fruits like berries. The spices for Kapha are black pepper, cumin, coriander, fennel, mustard seeds, fenugreek, turmeric, and fresh ginger. And then they can have all the herbs. That is as far as the 6 tastes go. All right, we are going to get into Agni. Agni is what's governed by Pitta. So if Pitta is out of balance, by any means, that's just no good. So Agni is your digestive fire. And also, if your digestive fire is not working, that is not good at all for you, because that means if that digestive fire is not working, it's not going to process the food properly. If it's not processing the food properly, it's not going to move to the tissues that need it. So we've got to make sure that we're putting in pure, wholesome foods into our body. All right. So with Agni being the digestive fire, we have what's called Ahara Ras. Ahara Ras is what is called a nutritive fluid, which is the food, it's like the food we take in that gets changed into a nutritive fluid. So Agni takes that, it absorbs it into the bloodstream through the intestinal wall, and then a process of nourishment goes through all the tissues. And the primary tissues that it goes through is plasma, blood, muscle, fat, bone, marrow, nervous tissues, and reproductive tissues. So it does one tissue at a time, and when that's done, it passes on to the next tissue to digest. When it's finished metabolizing this Ahara Ras, and it's complete, we get this what's called Ojas. Ojas is the final product. It's what flows through the body after we've taken in those pure foods that we've metabolized and taken in. And when Ojas are in balance, everything's blissful and pure. It's like our digestive processes have had that victory, and they're like, yes, this is what I'm reflecting in life. So when all that's done, if you're taking in these wholesome foods, Agni's good, the Ahara Ras is able to do its thing, turning everything into a nutritive fluid from the food you've taken in, nourish the dhatus, everything's good. But what can happen if we're taking in foods that are unwholesome, impure, that disturbs the Agni, which is that digestive intelligence, and leads to adjourn, which is indigestion in the body. When you have indigestion, which is the improper digestion of food, it results in alma. And alma is undigested food, and that sits in your body. And that's one reason they tell you to have a light dinner and at a certain time, because if that undigested food's left in your body, it's going to leave that alma, which is not good at all. It ends up imbalancing your Agni, and it obstructs all the channels in your body, which are those nadis, and it disrupts the flow of intelligence, and so that messes with your physical body. It has a negative effect, and it's just not great. So that is about diet and digestion. Next, we have wholeness of consciousness. So when we're able to attain those pure ojas that reflect on our digestion, it in turn reflects on our life. And this wholeness of consciousness expresses in ojas and soma. Soma is the unification of consciousness. So when our consciousness is good and our ojas is good, it creates freedom from imbalance, and you have these great waves of bliss and health. And who doesn't want that at all? So having this sequential process of digestion from an Ayurvedic standpoint is a great thing, because who doesn't want to create freedom from imbalance and have a great health? So, like it says, harmony with nature. When we have all these processes taken care of, and we're taking care of ourselves with self-care, we're in harmony with nature. We're following the natural law. The pulse reading is, it's a very unique thing, and it it can take you very, very far once you learn it. And diet and digestion's important, the routine's important, not creating those imbalances in life and keeping those doshas in balance. So there will be more later, and I hope you'll join me then. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're wondering about where I received this material, here are all my references, and I can let you all see these later. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time thinking about all this wonderful information and how you can make yourself feel better.